Welcome everybody. I want to say hello to all the MSP B schoolers out there and tell you we're here for another episode of MSP Business School. I'm really excited about this episode. I've gotten to know this gentleman a little bit more over the last few weeks, and he's got a great story to tell you. He's got a great approach model for those of you that are trying to figure out how to win more friends and curry favors, right? We're all out there trying to acquire some clients, and Brian Gillette's definitely one of the leading specialists in the industry for that. Before we kick off and introduce him formally, though, I do want to say to everybody out there, next week, VCIO Toolbox will be down at IT Nation Secure. If you're down there, love to see you talk shop in any way, shape, or form that you want to, whether it's more about sales and marketing like we cover here on MSP Business School, or of course anything that we do over at VCIO Toolbox. So I hope to see you down at IT Nation Secure. But now I'd like to welcome our guest today, and our guest is Brian Gillette from Feelgood MSP. Brian is one of the leading sales coaches in the industry right now. He's doing tremendous things with teams. And one of the things I like about Brian, and he'll tell you more about it later, he delivers value, but he doesn't always hit your wallet, as you're getting started. And there's some great things that he does right up front to really transfer some of that knowledge to you and really let you become that salesperson or that sales team that you need to be. So Brian, welcome.
Hey, Brian, thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here.
So Brian, most people want to know, how does one become a sales coach and what led you here? And why don't you tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you ended up in the world of MSP coaching?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people want to be a coach, but oftentimes people want to skip the part where they're a player. They just want to go straight to telling people what to do and everybody listening to them. But I was a salesperson that nobody knew about or cared about for a solid decade plus before anybody gave a crap about my advice. Because I was cutting my teeth learning what I'm coaching. So I been in sales for about 15 years. I've been in the channel. I joined the MSP channel in 2017 as a VP of sales for a small MSP down in Southern California where I live. And was there, realized there's not a whole lot of resources for me that I felt like I could use. There were certainly people who were offering the promise of leads and conversations and stuff, but I realized the best way to do this is to just build the whole thing myself, own it all, work my ass off. And I've always been a very linear sales guy. I'm not a hyper growth guy. I'm not a hockey stick guy. That's just not how I do it. Like, I'm just going to do the right thing for a long time, and I'm going to make linear progress. And when one day we'll look back and realize, oh, we have a huge book of business now because we just did the right thing for a long time. No shortcuts, nothing fancy, didn't need $1 billion in funding. So that was always my philosophy with building the MSP. It felt like this isn't like a SaaS company that's going to get a gajillion customers in 5 seconds. So if I can figure out a machine that can let me get 12 to 20 net new customers per year with an operation that can keep up, then we're going to make more money than we need to. And that's exactly what we did. So I did that for a few years and realized I went to a DattoCon, and I was brand new, really still pretty brand new to the channel. Had been around for a year-ish, 18 months. And I was at a DattoCon, and I was meeting with my Datto rep and a couple of other MSPs. And we're just talking shop, and we're talking growth. And I said, yeah, we did. I just joined the channel. I had no MSP experience. We've done 25K MRR in our first 18 months. And everybody just kind of paused and was like, how did you do that? I'm like, what do you mean? Probably the same way you guys did. And this guy says, you should sell that.
Yeah.
I'd buy that. And I went, really? But of course, and it exponentially grew from there. But that was the first moment I realized that I was onto something that not everybody else was onto.
And I wanted to dig into a couple of things you just said there, right? I just put up the banner about linear growth a moment ago, and I like that because I think a lot of MSPs think that as soon as they turn on the sales engine, there will be that hockey stick type growth curve. But the reality is the MSP sale tends to be a little bit longer term in some cases. You've got to really, wait to the right timing with some of your customers because, I used to joke around when I was an MSP. You can run over their cat 9 times before they're going to kick you out because it's painful to make a move as well. But I think, the other thing I really want to dig into is test your coach. Ask them what they did, right? There's the old saying in sports, those who can't do teach, and those are the guys that become the coaches. Find out if they were successful salespeople before. And obviously, what you're sharing here shows the pedigree. I actually went out and did this. This is how we grew the organization. This is the process we did. And now we're taking it to the streets and helping you.
That's right. Yeah. And not every like player can coach, and not every coach had to be an all-star athlete, right?
Right.
They are in a way different skills. One of the mistakes that every sales organization makes is they have a top performing salesperson and then they turn him into a manager, right?
Yep.
And just because they knew how to do it doesn't mean they know how to teach other people to do it the way they did it. So yeah, to your point, if you've got a quote guru or an expert who's telling you how to grow your business, the question should be, have you done this yourself? And anybody who's telling you to go make cold calls, if they haven't made $100 a day for at least a year straight, they're not allowed to tell you that you should cold call or how to cold call, because they've just never done it themselves. They don't realize what they're asking of you.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great analogy right there with the 100 calls for a year, because you need to have that experience, right? We all hear about the 5,000 hours to be an expert at anything. But when it came to, I come from a generation before you, Brian, or like half generation before you. We
Sure.
only had the phone. And back then, it was a different time where you could make 100 calls, get 30 people on the other end of the phone and score anywhere from 4 to 6 appointments by the time you were done. We know that game has changed now. And even if you are cold calling, you've got to have a different approach. You've got to have a different entry point. You're not tricking anybody anymore into, and I shouldn't use the word tricking, but you're not convincing anybody about coming in to see them, because everybody is now very busy and wants to make sure that there's really going to be value in their time. So what are some of the tactics that you recommend in this next generation of selling, for these salespeople out there?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the best tactic is the one that you'll actually do. So I could
I
tell
love
you
it.
what I would do, but oftentimes what I've observed as I'm coaching MSPs is like they oftentimes are already fattened with information about how to sell, but they're not taking any action on it. So the question then becomes, a good coach isn't going to say, this is what you should do, but it's going to ask you the question, why aren't you doing the last thing someone told you to do? That's usually the real problem. So I know that's not the question that you asked, but
No, but it does touch upon it. So, look, tactics are tactics. I think we all know a few different ways to get in there, but what I love about your response is right there, consistency and driving action. Everybody can have analysis paralysis. They can think about the sales
yeah,
process. And like you said, they know intrinsically what needs to be done, almost all of them. But unless you commit, unless you take action, unless you have somebody driving accountability, you're not going to see any results. And we know the sales is a numbers game. If you get to an X amount of people, however you find them, you will get X amount of results. But where I usually see sales break down in MSPs is that consistency of action, especially when it's owner-led sales and other drivers can pull them away from sales focus.
that's right. So we go to, I'm going to hire an agency. I'm going to outsource or abdicate the responsibility to do the legwork. And that can be successful, but we all know, I mean, anytime I'm in a room with MSPs, I say, raise your hand if you've ever made an MRR investment into lead generation. 100% of them raise their hand. And I
Yep.
say, keep your hand up if you got a return on investment. And 80% of their hands go down. So we know that statistically, you're more likely to not get an ROI on that investment than you are. Is that because now the reason for that is that your MSP, is that the vendor's fault? Is that the channel's fault? I mean, that's a bigger conversation. But the point is that to your question, the right tactic for you is the one you're going to do every day. So if I say the best thing to do is hit the phones and you're not going to do it, then that's not the right tactic. Right now I teach one of 3 lead gen channels. If we're talking about generating leads specifically, it's either the phone, cold call, cold email, or LinkedIn. If
Yep.
you do one of those 3 things with semi-consistency, you will get semi-consistent results. If you do it sporadically, you'll get sporadic results. And if you do it every day, you'll get consistent results. So I want to take I have this chart I call the time to cost comparative expenditure, because every sale, every lead takes either time, money, or both, right? There's no
Yep.
such thing as a free lead that didn't take any time. Even if it's a referral, you had to invest years into helping that client to get that referral. See what I mean? So it was
Cost of
passive.
acquisition is real, no matter how that lead ends up at your doorstep.
That's right. So the first thing to do is like, what do I have to invest? Do I have time or money? And that's going to help us know which is the right tactic, because it's going to be the one that you can actually sustain. If you've got time, but you don't have any MRR, you're running net negative on the MRR. Don't hire in a marketing agency. Pick up the phone.
Yeah.
If you've got a bunch of cash on hand, but everybody's swamped, you don't have time to pick up the phone. So what we need to do is build some sort of an automated system. But yeah, I think phone call, cold email, or LinkedIn. If you do one of those things, you can get 6 to 12 clients a year.
And one of the things I do see is with technical, a lot of sales in the MSP obviously starts with the founder-led sales process first and then scales out from there. And a lot of our industry is tech, tech background founders. So one of the challenges I see there is just the fear to the phone. And in my 2 cents I'll put in there is they're not saying no to you. They're saying no to your message.
Mm.
Remember that it's not personal. I learned very quickly. I worked for a telephone reseller that was called Total Communications. We called it TCI when we made our phone calls. Same people that rejected me when I was TCI because they didn't know who it was, when I went to AT&T, understood those letters and took me on. And it really imprinted for me. Sometimes it's the message, the brand. You got to help build that awareness, but don't take it personally. Brush yourself off, go make the next call, because you're also going to learn from the people you're talking to on ways how to improve your business, what they like about their current vendor. Take an unsuccessful call and use it as a research moment.
Right. If you treat sales as college, then you'll have a much different perspective than if you think of sales as, ticket triage. It's not something where I push this button 100 times, now I get money. That's not how sales works. If it was, people like you and I would never have had jobs.
Right.
We wouldn't need any coaches. So if you think of it as, this is college where I'm learning human intelligence, I'm learning conversational reaction skills, I'm learning empathy. Now sales, to me, that my secret to success is that I gamify everything that's really hard, so I keep doing it.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, of course, we've all been cussed out. We've all heard the horrible things said to us. We've also all cussed out people on the phone because we transferred our crappy day to some poor 19-year-old sales rep that didn't deserve it.
No doubt. No doubt about that.
We've all been, we've all seen people super rude to the waiter for no reason, just because the waiter's trying to do their job. But I think the thing about selling, and since we're talking on cold calling, I think we'll just stay on this topic, is you are not entitled to anyone's attention, no matter how desperately you want it. So if somebody doesn't give you the attention, you shouldn't feel slighted. You shouldn't feel offended. You're not entitled to their attention. You gave them an opportunity to listen to you. They said no. That's all it was. So you just go, okay, and you're sorting a list of contacts. You're just sorting them into people who want to hear it and don't want to hear it. That's your job. Now, the tactics and the script and all that does come into play, of course. But I find that, especially in the MSP space, we tend to overemphasize the importance of the tools and the tactics, and we underemphasize the importance of the grit, the work, and the action. Just pick up the phone and go, listen, this is a cold call. I know you're not expecting anything from me right now. I'm quite sure you're busy. If you can give me 30 seconds, let me tell you why I called you, how it might benefit you. And if it's of not interest, you could just slam the phone on me. What do you think?
And that's a win too. I want to reiterate that, because you got to get rid of the people you're not going to chase. I love that scene in Tommy Boy where he's like, I got that lead and I got that sale and, I'm like on it. But sometimes we just don't know. It's time to let go of that, right? And get to that no statement. So, getting that no allows you to say that person's not for me. And that's huge, because you can waste a lot of time chasing the wrong things, all day long. The other thing is, you need those no's to become immune to the no's. And that's another important part of selling, right?
For sure.
I I've told this story on MSP Business School in the past, but I had a VP of sales that when I was a junior sales rep told me, what are you selling? This goes back in the 90s. And I was like, 800 numbers. And he goes, how much do you make when you sell one? $300. He goes, how many calls you got to make to do it? I don't know, around 100. And he's like, great. So every time somebody tells you no, you made $3. And when you have that type of mentality, which ties to what you're saying about gamification, it really takes some of the sting off of, those rejected calls. Cause you're like, all right, cool. I got that one out of the way, $3. Let's get to the next one.
Right. And it's a craft. I mean, there's a reason salespeople make so much money, because it's hard and nobody wants to do it. It's a hard job, but I wonder if there's probably some tactics we could cover in lead gen channels that people are more excited to do, because cold calling is the one that everybody dreads, but there are other simpler ways.
Well, you talked a little bit about LinkedIn, and I think the thing with LinkedIn is, and you receive them, I receive them, everybody that's listening to this receives them. You get those people that are trying to do LinkedIn sales, and I'm totally a big fan of that approach. I've made many of my customers through contacts there. But you got to be careful of how you approach it. When I get those auto-generated replies within 3 seconds of getting your connection, telling me what you can already do for me, when we haven't gotten past hello, I'm going to turn you off, right? Brian, do you got some strategies on how to maybe engage on LinkedIn, and what's kind of the right approach model that might be successful for a sales rep?
For sure. In fact, I'll give you some best practices, and then I'm sure, Brian, you probably have something to add to them as well. And I'll tell you what, I'll give you my entire LinkedIn playbook right now for free. I'll tell you exactly how I do it. And the truth is, because a lot of you aren't going to do it anyway.
Yep. You need the accountability piece.
Yeah. You've got to actually go do it. But if you're an MSP and you're listening to the sound of my voice, I want you to hear me. If you do exactly what I'm about to tell you, you will get a customer in 90 days. For starters, the best practice is, a lot of people are paying for content, or they're getting content from one of these syndicated sources, and a lot of it's really fantastic, but then they're posting every day to their 317 first degree connections. Why are you paying for content that no one is seeing?
Yep.
You need to grow your network. LinkedIn has a limitation at the time of this recording of 400 connection requests per month that you can send. Maybe that's changed. It used to be 2,000 a couple years ago, but now it's 400. So what that means is you can send 100 connection requests a week. And when you get to 400, it will say you've hit your limit, and it will wait till the next month, and then you can send them again. So here's what you do. You go on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. It's $100 a month. Just suck it up and pay for it. It's the best $100 a month you're ever going to spend.
If you're not investing into yourself, you can't expect returns back.
Period. Not to mention, I think they still do 2 or 3 months free. And if you have a friend who has LinkedIn Sales Navigator, they used to do referrals where they can get you 2 or 3 months free just by sending you a link. So there you go. Do this for 3 months, and then I'll prove it to you that it's worth the $99 a month. I'm telling you, just, bring a sack lunch every day and pay for late Sales Navigator. Okay. You make a saved search list of people in your target demographic. So how many users, what industry, what city, what job title, or what seniority level, all the things that most MSPs claim that they know. Who's the people you want to target? You're going to make a saved search of that demographic. You're going to filter by second degree connection. That means somebody who's connected to somebody who's in your network.
Yep.
You're going to start there. As you start, that list is going to be like 17 people long. But every time you add a new first degree, you get an exponent. By an order of magnitude, your second degree will grow, right? So you start by just going through the whole list of second degree connections in that demographic and just send a blind connection request. Don't research their website. You don't have to do any of that. Just send them a blind invite. 20 to 25% will accept it. That's proven data. Yep. You send 100 connection requests a week. If you do the math, that means you're going to get about 100 first degree connections per month of people in your demographic. Now you've got 100 people that are seeing the content you're paying for. And you're exponentially increasing the probability of it having any positive effect. Your impressions, your comments, your likes, your reshares, all that's going to go up. Of course, the other thing you're going to want to do is at least comment 10 times a week on other content. Find people who are engaging with content you like write a funny or a helpful content, put as much thought into a comment as you would a LinkedIn post. And once you've done that, you're engaging. Now you've got new people joining the flow. You can start sending a DM campaign. I age people at least 4 weeks. So they've seen my content for 4 weeks, and I'm not pitch slapping them right up to the top.
That is the key, man.
Just let them see your content. Let the content do its work. Send them a 2 to 4 touch invitation over 2 to 4 weeks, and you will generate leads.
I've had some success, Brian, if I can add one more step in there.
Please.
And again, it might not be required, but I'll make that connection. Now I do, there are automation tools for that initial connection. Resist the urge of the follow-ups, because there is something to be said about the time saving of getting your list in Sales Navigator, putting it together, and then automating out that initial
Yeah.
touch point. But once you connect with those users, first just send them, hey, thanks for connecting. That's it. Resist the urge. Just that, so they see that you're a human. You could be, if you saw something on a post and you want to add something about that you read about them very quickly, go for it, but don't pitch. Then I make sure that I write the people that I connect down with each month, and I'm making sure I'm starting a real relationship with them in that way. I look for their posts. If they put something up there, I'll comment, but comment accordingly. If it's not genuine and authentic, don't bother. But if you comment on that, they're starting to see your name, but they're not seeing your name again with sales. And then what I'll do at the end of the month is I'll usually just open up with, hey, we've been connected for about a month. I love networking with other people. Would you like to grab 15 minutes for a phone call? And then sometimes I'll get on the phone with those folks that way. And I know they're a target for what I'm doing, right? But we'll just have a conversation. Then I'll be like, well, if you'd ever like to talk deeper about what we do here, love to have a more expanded call. And those things actually work. Now, there's a time investment with that, right? You just heard there that I spent 4 weeks tracking somebody down, sounds a little daunting that way, but I follow those people, comment accordingly, and then I ask for a call. And trust me, you're not going to get a rush of people that accept that call either. But the ones that do, you can build some genuine connections with, and some of those will convert into people. So it's all about human touch. They want to know that they're being heard. All of us are posting on LinkedIn, and it's very easy to lazy like, but those comments really mean something to everyone.
That's right.
So that's my 2 cents. So Brian, we've covered some different things here, and I know I'll have you back again so we can continue the conversations about sales. But let's kick off with some things that you're doing. I know you have a monthly workshop or something on that manner. You want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. Every month we run a 3-day, 90-minute per day online workshop. And the purpose of that workshop is to basically walk you through I have a 7-step framework that I use for scaling MSPs. So it starts with how you collect information, and it ends all the way through with how you perfect your customer renewals and pre-sell projects into existing accounts. I charge $47 for that workshop. I'm trying to absolutely over deliver and make it as affordable as I possibly can. I think our next one is June 17th through 19th, but you can always find the upcoming workshop we have at feelgoodmsp.com/workshop. There'll be all the info there, and that's how you get registered.
For those of you on YouTube, you'll see that URL right here on the screen, and it'll also be in the show notes for the podcast and YouTube as well. So, I would go check it out. I mean, Brian, what's the price on that again?
$47 per person.
I mean, 3 days worth of sales training for $50, basically.
Yeah.
You can't beat a deal like that. You're going to get some tips that go with it. And then, as we've reiterated many times today, then you got to go out and execute. It's on you at that point.
Yeah. But we can get you, I can take the sting out of the execution. We can help with the playbook. We can help with the frame of mind, and give you, a lot of MSPs are saying they really just want a fair shot. And this is how you get it. Get yourself a fair shot to go out and grow your business.
Well, Brian, I got to thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your openness and sharing actually executable steps that people can take. Again, folks, if you want to learn more and you want to get together with Brian, we're going to be posting up his LinkedIn profile here. So take the first step of what we talked about today and connect with him. And, if you're really interested in his workshop, definitely go to feelgoodmsp.com/workshop. Invest a few hours of your lifetime to get better at a craft that you need to get better at. Brian, any closing thoughts before we wrap up today?
I don't think so. I think, I just want to say, Brian, thanks for what you're doing, making this podcast. I don't know if anybody ever thanks you for this, but you don't have to do this and create this platform where MSPs can get, really good advice from yourself and a lot of other people who've gone before the MSPs. But yeah, I think that the takeaway here is I want anybody who's listening, who's discouraged, who's feeling deflated, who's feeling like, man, this is just, I've tried it 10 times. It's not going to work. I promise you it can work. I promise you it can. I understand that it might not have, but that does not have to be the end of your sales story. Everybody like Brian and myself sat at a desk one day saying, oh my God, this isn't working.
It's ups and
What-
downs. It's a roller coaster. I used to
That's right.
say 9 out of 12 months you'll be successful, but you're going to have, if you're really good at this, but you're going to have 3 that still kick your butt every
Oh yeah,
year,
for sure.
every year.
And that's all it takes. All it takes is converting 1 out of 100 deals, and you're going to get a deal a month. So just keep your head up, keep in the game. It's going to work for you. Take the steps, and I wish everybody listening all the best.
Well, thank you again for joining us, Brian. I appreciate the kind words about the podcast. The reality is we do it out of pure joy. The more time you spend in the MSP, and those of us that have been in the community, it's a giving community. It's got a go-giver spirit. And we just try to share these stories and bring in great guests like yourself that are happy to share and go a little deeper and show a little behind the kimono and not just try to stay surface level. So again, I appreciate your openness here. Again, folks, where can you get this podcast? Anywhere that you can download your podcast, we are there. And of course, check us out on YouTube. Click the subscribe button and you'll never miss an episode. But I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. We'll see you again next week, and go get them. Go sell somebody. Take care.